All right. Karen, have you heard from Bulumko? Could we get hold of her?
She's just, her Zoom is just stalling a bit, so she'll be on in
She'll be on in a minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We have an incredible session today on the topic of disability inclusion in early learning classrooms. Like I mentioned, my name is Helene Brandt. I'm from Grow ECD. We have two amazing guest speakers from the Shonaquip Social Enterprise. And today we're having a jam-packed session. Karen and Bulumko are going to be telling us a little bit about the Shonaquip Social Enterprise and what they do. And we'll dive immediately into the topic of what does disability really mean? And the answer might surprise you. What inclusion really looks like, and even here I had to be educated. Who benefits from including children with disabilities in their classrooms, and some of the rights related to disability inclusion. And then we'll go into some fascinating content around the 10 points to remember when you are practicing inclusion in your classroom. And we'll look at examples of ECD inclusion and training and what that looks like for ECD centers specifically. And finally, Karen and Bulumko will talk to us a little bit about Ndinogona, which is their ICANN training program, specifically focused on capacitating and empowering educators on disability and inclusion in their classrooms. So feel free to use the chat section if you have comments, questions, or a contribution to make. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions. And let me just introduce to you who we are speaking to today. Karen Mostert and Bulumko Woji, both are Ndinogona program facilitators. And do training with ECD practitioners on disability and inclusion. Karen has a background as a Montessori preschool educator, and Bulumko is an occupational therapist. They know so much, and they are very eager to share their knowledge and their experience with us today. So please feel free to also share your questions and comments in the chat section. So Karen, maybe why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit about the very special and interesting background to what started the Shonaquip Social Enterprise.
Thank you, Helene, and good afternoon and welcome to everyone. We're very happy to be here with you, to see so many people so interested in this topic of disability inclusion in the early learning space. And we're very excited to share with you our experience. And I wanted to start by just sharing with you the start of the journey, how Shonaquip Social Enterprise came to be. And our focus is on enabling inclusion across communities in South Africa. And this was started by a lady called Shona MacDonald. And she has 3 daughters, and her second daughter was born with a disability. And the doctors basically told her to put her in a care institution and have another child. And she was so shocked and angry with this advice that she decided she was going to build a wheelchair for her daughter Shelly herself. So in her garage, more than 30 years ago, she built the wheelchair and then other devices for Shelly. And other parents came to her and said, can you do the same for my child? Because there wasn't much available in South Africa for devices for children with disabilities. And that's really where the heartbeat of Shonaquip comes from. And then Shona realized that even though her daughter was in a wheelchair and did have a device, the inclusion part was still difficult. She wasn't always included in the community and couldn't participate. So Shona's mission was then not only to make wheelchairs, but also to change the landscape of inclusion in South Africa.
Indeed. Yeah. And I think the Shonaquip Social Enterprise has really done that. I think when we think of inclusivity, especially for impaired learners, Shonaquip is the name that comes to mind. In fact, Bulumko, I know that you were mentioning to me that you do way more than just the assistive technology and the wheelchairs and those devices. Tell us about your ecosystem approach.
Yes, thank you, Helene. So at Shonaquip, we work on an ecosystem-based approach because we believe that there needs to be a focus on each ecosystem in order to foster an environment where play and learning can take place. So we have 4 ecosystems that are loosely based on the United Nations Sustainable Goals. Our ecosystem 1 is called family and community resilience. And in this ecosystem, we look at the broader context or society that the child lives in. And this is the family and the community. It includes perceptions and barriers that they may face in the community, the referral pathways involved in different various sectors like the healthcare, education, and social services. And so with ecosystem 2, that is our appropriate assistive technology. So our famous wheelchairs and buggies that are blue that I'm sure a lot of our ECD teachers have seen in their classroom. This is because we believe that for people to be able to engage in the world and interact and complete their daily tasks, they need to have good positioning. And so for children with mobility impairments, support and correct positioning usually comes from an external source, either the caregiver carrying the child or a positioning device like a wheelchair or a buggy. And then when we go to ecosystem 3, this is the inclusive play and learning aspect. And in this ecosystem, this is where we as the Ndinogona program fall under. We place an importance on preparing and supporting schools to the best of our ability, especially the ECDs, to be inclusive so that children with disabilities are accommodated and expected at our schools from a young age. And then finally, with ecosystem 4, this is the activating awareness ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, we look at the family unit. So we know for a fact that raising a child is not easy. And then with an added layer of raising a child with a disability, it makes the task even more challenging. So here we give support to parents who play active roles in the child's life and to be able to build their daily routines and also to relieve the burden of the financial burden, especially of raising a child with a disability. So this is where our parent network falls in, and we'll be speaking about that a bit later.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes a village, but I hear it also takes an ecosystem. So thank you very much for sharing that. Karen, you posed a very interesting question to me when we met, and it's what do we actually think is disability? Why don't you you share a little bit of that with us and your questions?
Thanks, Julian. So we wanted to just take a time to pause and let participants and everyone joining think about when they hear the word disability, what word comes up for you. So we'd like to encourage you to write a word or a phrase in the chat panel in the language that you're comfortable in to say, what is disability? What do you associate with disability, so that we can just unpack that and to hear what people are thinking and saying from this group.
Use the chat section now and then tell us what words come to your mind. What do you see? What are the words from your community? I see Rizwan Sue using the word barriers, challenges, Veronica, abnormal, to be differently abled. Okay. Challenges again, deaf, diversity. Awo says can't. Wow, these are great words, everyone. Thank you for sharing. Karen, can you and Bulumko see the chat?
Yes, I see remedial
yes,
support.
They're running quite fast.
Inability, barriers preventing children from accessing learning, Down syndrome, mentally challenged. Yes, thank you for all the words and the input. Learning disorder, slow.
Remedial.
Thank you. So if we see the words that are coming up, some of them, it's quite a range of words. Some of them have more negative associations, like broken, unable, and impaired. And some have more positive, like looking at barriers and empathy. So it is it's important to consider for yourself and your preschool and your community, what are the conversations and the languages used around disability as a starting point. And yeah, my colleague will just unpack that a little bit more in terms of how we see it at Shonaquip.
Yes, so I'm reading the chats and there's so many responses. And as Corin said, there's some responses that are looking at disability in a negative light, not able, different abled. So this highlights something called the medical model, which is in the past, disability was looked at something that is wrong with the person. So something that's caused by trauma or disease or a health condition that is external to the person and that it needs to be fixed or cured. So therefore, if you cannot be fixed or cured, then the person is unable to contribute to their communities or society. So this is the medical model, sorry. And this is a traditional, outdated way of looking at disability. Therefore, at Shonaquip Social Enterprise, we look at disability according to the social model. And the social model looks at the complex interaction between an impairment, the environment a person exists in, and the barriers that they face within that environment. And so let's break it down a little bit so that we can understand each component of the social model. An impairment is a long-term change in the structure or the function of the body. So an example is a person who's had their leg cut off, an amputation. There has been a long-term change in the structure and the function of the body. The second definition is a barrier, and a barrier is an obstacle in the environment preventing movement and access. An example of a barrier could be having stairs at the entrance of a building, and so this blocks or prevents people with wheelchairs from entering the building. And then finally, we have participation. And participation means to equally take part in society in a meaningful and purposeful way. And so an example of participation could be a child attending school every day of the week. So if we go on to the next slide. This therefore combines those three elements, and it says that the social model defines disability as a long-term impairment that interacts with different barriers in the environment that prevents a person from participating on an equal basis. So it's much more complex than we were looking at it before, with just something being wrong with a person's body and needing to be cured. But now we're looking at disability in three terms of the impairment, a barrier, and participation that leads to unequal participation in society.
Bulumka, I find this definition really helpful and interesting because it helps me reflect on what my contribution is actually to potentially to barriers or to participation, for example. And I think the social model really shows us that it's not just about the individual who has the impairment, but also how we as society interact and create opportunities or barriers. So that's really, really interesting.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's see. You've set me a little challenge here. The rest of us can all participate. So the Shonaquip team have a little poll for us here. Let's see how clever we are. We have two pictures on the screen, picture A and picture B. And if you look on your screen now, I'm going to launch a poll. And the question is, which of these images shows inclusion? So if you look at the pictures, which of these pictures shows inclusion? Picture A, picture B, both pictures, or none of these pictures? Let's see. Okay, 40 people have already voted.
Oh, wow.
We have, just so that you know, we have 200 people on the call. That's potentially 200 families and neighborhoods, ECD centers who are very interested in this topic. And 100 people have already voted. I'm going to give you another 5 to 10 seconds to vote in the poll, whether you think picture A shows inclusion, picture B, both, or none of these pictures. And then I'll share the results. And you can see, what do we think? Okay, I'm ending the poll now. Let's hope technology is working in my favor, and I will share the results.
Okay.
Bulumko, what do you see there in the results?
Yeah.
And what can you tell us?
But I see that 78% of people said picture B is inclusion. So
Is that correct? Is picture A not inclusion?
I think was Karen, would you like to answer that?
Yes. So we can see in picture A the boy with the disability, he is on the playground, but he's not with other children. He's looking from the distance. So he is being excluded from the play and the learning that's going on. So picture A shows exclusion. And then looking at picture B, which so many people voted for, that we can see inclusion is happening there. The children are in a circle. The little boy in the wheelchair is being included as part of the circle. He's not sitting in a corner somewhere. The children seem happy, and there's a sense of cohesion and care in the classroom. So you can see in picture B clearly illustrates inclusion. And I'm glad so many of the participants could see that.
In fact, Karen has this lovely little infographic for us. I think this is one that you can absolutely take a screenshot of to have a look at later. I never knew that there was such a, let's say, a spectrum between exclusion and inclusion. Explain it to us, please, Karen.
Yes, thanks, Julian. So this is just a really good graphic to show you the difference between exclusion and inclusion. So you can see right on the left top corner is a clear indication of exclusion, where children are prevented or denied access from any education. So they're not even considered. So that's on the extreme side. And then moving more towards segregation is where children are still they are provided with a place to learn, but it is in a completely separate place. So this is, for example, a special needs school where children go with specific impairments, like for hearing impaired or visually impaired children. It's in a different building and it's a different space, so the children don't have a chance to mix together. And then moving on to the difference between integration and inclusion. So in the bottom left, you can see integration, where children with disabilities are included in a school, but they have their own specific class, so like the special needs class. So on the surface, it can look like inclusion, but it's not real inclusion because the children aren't learning together in one space. And then on the bottom right, we can see inclusion, where all children are in one place together, learning and playing together and being taught with specific adaptations according to their specific needs, and everybody is in the same place learning together. And that is real inclusion, and that is what we aim for, and what our training supports preschool teachers to do across the country.
And so that's what we are aiming for. And I can imagine that it's a journey and that it's not an instant, easy path to follow for an ECD center, for example, who wants to strive towards inclusion.
It is. It's a journey. It's not always easy, but just taking the step of saying I'm going to open my doors to welcome children with disabilities, and then problem solving as things come up, as different children are welcomed in the class, finding a solution with the support of parents and the community, and therapists and people around you. So it's a journey, but it's a worthwhile journey to take. And so the next slide just shows nicely an overall view of inclusion in terms of the broader community. So looking at the fact that inclusion means that all people are included and welcomed into spaces, regardless of their abilities, impairments, or health needs, and have the right to be respected and appreciated, to see, I can see what you have to give. I don't just see your weaknesses and what you can't do. I see what you can do. I see how you can change spaces and brings in so much value, and to participate and to be able to work in the community with earning a competitive wage and having a career that you draws on your strengths. And then finally, to attend education classes with peers from preschool through to university and continuing education. And so ECD inclusion is really the foundation for someone with a disability to be able to be integrated into our community and to take part and to be a valued community member.
Karen, I think this is such a lovely summary. I think this could be a beautiful poster for us to put up in all our schools, because even well-informed people like myself, I consider myself well-informed and educated, you know, this opened my eyes to how blind we are sometimes to the barriers we create intentionally or unintentionally for people who are different than us, and how inclusion is really about all people and respect and making everybody valued and included. In fact, I'm so grateful. I see Portia has asked an excellent question. This relates perfectly to our next slide. So Bulumko is going to do the next slide for us. But Bulumko, Portia is asking, is it okay to have kids with disabilities and special needs in the same class as normal kids? And I think this is exactly where you're coming from when you talk about it's not just segregation or accommodating them, but including them. So Bulumko, I know that you're passionate about this. Tell us about inclusion and through that answer Portia's question.
Yes, thank you, Helene. So just to explain what we have on the slide in front of us, there's a couple of pictures that are illustrating inclusion in a classroom or inclusion in a classroom setting. And so going from the left side, this is a picture of Ndinogona ECD training program in the Western Cape in 2023, and it shows the upskilling of both ECD practitioners and parents of children with disabilities attending and setting up activities for the children in their group. And so this would be a mixed group of children with and without disabilities. And the teachers are using the manual clearly there to help inform the activity for that session. The middle picture is showing us children from a creche in Mpumalanga in Hluzi, and they are playing with Legos. And so the Legos have been a nice addition to the Ndinogona program. It's been sponsored by the Lego Foundation. And this is just again showing play with children with different impairments and not just physical impairments. And then the third picture on our right is also Ndinogona training, which happened in Limpopo. And this is also, again, showing both ECD practitioners and parents of children with disabilities setting up different activities. This activity in particular is a painting activity for children with and without disabilities in that group. And so I really liked Portia's question when she asked it, because we get asked a couple of times whether it is okay to have children with disabilities and children without disabilities in the same classroom. And as much as I'm here positioning myself as an expert, I won't say I'm an expert in everything, And so I don't think it has a clear-cut answer that it depends. And so we want to do inclusion, but we want to do it right. And we want to serve the justice to both the child with a disability and the child without disability, ensuring that all children have play and learning opportunities within the classroom setting. And so some of our educators would ask, but what about the mental capacity of the child? What if the child with a disability might overpower other children in the classroom? And I think it's about our educators really knowing all of the children in the classroom, and that we know different aspects of each child's personality and character traits. And so knowing how to put children together that are suited together in the classroom while still practicing inclusion. And so I would really say that all children deserve to be in a classroom. It's just about how we set up our classroom in order to ensure that every child in that class is having an opportunity to play and an opportunity to learn.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Because I think that talks to almost your next point, which is sometimes we think that inclusion is only for the sake of the child with the disability, but actually many people are benefiting. So why is including the why would we want to include the child with the disability in our early learning space? Why is that important?
And so I will be speaking specifically in terms of how play and the importance of play and inclusion affects the child. I think my colleague Karen will speak about the benefits of inclusion as a whole, but specifically for the children, those with and those without disabilities, we know that children have 4 major developmental areas, and these areas grow through playing and learning. And so the first area is the physical development, which is the growth and change in the child's muscles and bodies and their bone structure. We have social development, which is the development of social and communication skills. We have cognitive development, which is the growth of the brain and complex thinking skills that the child develops. And we have emotional development, which is the child's ability to express emotion and to have emotional responses. And so when we play, especially from a young age, we are getting stimulated in all 4 of those developmental areas. So for example, when we are playing physically, jumping, skipping, and kicking a ball, that develops our muscle strength, our balance, and our coordination. With social development, the child is learning teamwork skills, how to take turns, communication, and building relationships with other children. Cognitively, they are learning numbers, counting, different concepts that they are supposed to be learning also in school. They're also learning problem-solving abilities and how to pay attention. And in terms of the social development, the emotional development, the child is learning how to be able to frustration tolerance, to be able to tolerate their frustration if they lose the game, and all these other emotional expression that they're learning through play. And so play is a serious job for children, and all children should be doing their job, which is to play, those children with and those without disabilities.
Excellent. We're getting some excellent comments in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for contributing your insights and also your challenges. I want to mention here that I think it's your name is Snusha. It says that our preschool started to introduce and include a sign language in our daily program. What an incredible way. So they're teaching their learners basic skills to communicate with deaf learners and the deaf community. I mean, and that's also part of their language development, social development. What a great example of doing that in action.
Yeah.
Well,
And so,
go for
yes.
it.
So this next video actually shows another way in which we try and show our teachers why play is important. We actually have the ECD practitioner play one of their favorite childhood games. And this is a clip of one of the games of dodgeball that the teachers are playing together.
Dodgeball.
Yes. Excuse my laughter in the video.
She got it. Teachers, I hope you also make time to play. Even children in wheelchairs also want to play. There was a comment in the chat where I think it is a parent who's saying that she has 2 children, her one child loves to be with the other children and wants to play along. So Karen, talk to us about inclusion and who benefits.
Thanks, Helene. And this is such an important question, and I saw it raised before about including children with disabilities and without. And often when we pose the question, who benefits from an inclusive classroom, the first thing that comes to mind is a child with a disability. And this is true because they are playing and learning with others. But in addition to that, it's the children without disabilities that are benefiting from being in an inclusive classroom, because they are learning an understanding of diversity and empathy at a young age. They have a chance to be friends with somebody that is different to them and understand that we're not all the same, but we all have similar needs and wants, and we want to be included and to learn and have fun. And so that space of caring, creating a culture of caring in the classroom from having a diversity of needs is so important. And the children also then without disabilities would grow up and to be in their own career paths like engineers or architects and take their vision of inclusion with them to create a bigger change in society. So that's a very important point to consider, the children without disabilities as well. Being included, learning from an inclusive space. The other group of people that benefit is the teachers themselves. So as a teacher, you need to learn how to teach different needs. You need to understand the strengths and needs of your individual children to adapt your teaching styles. And it's a high level of collaboration that you're learning because you're working with teachers, other teachers, with parents, with therapists. So you're learning how to collaborate. And then also looking at the group of parents. If you have a child with a disability, having a preschool nearby that is inclusive is really beneficial because your child can start schooling early, they can have early intervention. You cut down on travel costs, you don't have to send them away to a special school, you can be part of their schooling. And you can go and work. Often a mother takes the role of caring for the child with disability, but if there's a school nearby, the mother can then find some work. And then also parents children without disabilities can understand the importance of inclusion and diversity. And I saw in one of the chats somebody said that their child is in an inclusive school and how much they enjoy that. And then finally looking at just the benefits to our community. So having the impact of understanding of diversity and inclusion has a ripple effect across society, because we will then be more understanding of breaking down barriers and creating ways to include everybody, regardless of their impairments or how they look or what they need, but that everybody does have a right and a need to be included and participate in our community and society.
Yes, absolutely.
So in a nutshell, if we just go to the next slide, we can see that everyone benefits from inclusive classrooms.
Lovely. And I want to acknowledge a great comment in the chat. Lungile says that at their center, we try to include children with ADHD and ASD, having an extra aid on top of a teacher's assistant in the class. She's very honest. She says it's not very easy, but it does make things better. I've also seen centers where they can't afford an extra aide. They ask unemployed parents to volunteer their time to assist teachers and to assist in the classrooms. In fact, I mean,
yeah, that's such an important point. And to say that draw on the community resources to have extra hands, because I know it is a handful to have all the different needs, but that's a very good point.
yes, I mean, in fact, disability and inclusion is so important that it is written into many of the policies, the procedures, and the rights relating to children in our country. Bulumko, just give us a high-level, quick overview of the rights related to disability so that we can feel empowered and informed.
Of course, Elaine. So in fact, it actually starts with our constitution. So this is a Bill of Rights that every person born on South African soil is entitled to. It starts off with saying that we, the people of South Africa, believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. And so the Constitution defines diversity as anyone who is different in race, gender, marital status, ethnic, social origin, disability, sexual orientation, age, religion, conscious belief, culture, language, or birth. So that really does include everyone. We also have the National Integrated Early Childhood Development Policy of South Africa. And this policy says that there needs to be universal availability and equitable access to quality early learning development services for children from birth until the age of 8 years old, formal schooling. We then also have the White Paper 6 on inclusive education, which states that every child has the right to attend a mainstream school in their neighborhood and should be reasonably accommodated. It also says that children with disabilities should be able to access inclusive quality education within their communities.
Amazing. I mean, there's even more rights that we can talk about, and we can absolutely go down the little rabbit hole of the fact that not everyone has access to these rights yet. But I think that it's clear to say that as South Africans, we must prioritize these and develop that ecosystem, right? That village that supports parents and communities. I see some excellent comments in the chat. We'll definitely look at a few more of those, but I want to get into the next section, which will help answer a few questions. People had questions about, should you have a different curriculum? How do you adjust your curriculum? How do you adjust what you're doing in the classroom? Is it a separate thing that you're doing? And the Shonaquip team have some amazing training on this, but today they're going to show us their 10 principles of inclusion, which will help you. If you apply these principles, it'll help you adapt to what you're doing in your teaching style. Karen, I think it's you. Will you walk us through it?
Thanks, Helion. So this really forms the heart of our training, these 10 principles of inclusion. And it's a way for teachers and principals to understand disability inclusion through a different lens, not to say adapt your entire curriculum, but if you weave these 10 points and principles throughout your different activities, you will be creating an inclusive space for play and learning for all children. So I'm just gonna run you through them briefly for now. We do delve deeper into them in our training, and then we'll look into two of the points specifically to give you more details. But just starting with the first point of communication. So to say it's important to communicate to the child before you do the activity and during the activity, and to say when the activity is coming to an end. And then also to consider other ways of communicating for a child, for example, who's nonverbal, who doesn't talk, to look at different ways to communicate with them in terms of, so you can look at pointing, they can use their finger, the facial expressions, communicating through how they look, their body language, and even with pointing with their eyes. So if you follow, if you ask them to look somewhere and you follow where they're looking, that is a way of communication. So just making sure you communicate throughout the activity. Then looking at the second point, let me just get to my slides, which is to explore. So to give the children a chance to explore an item or a toy before you just jump straight into the activity, to give them time to see what it feels like, what it smells like, to explore the new environment if you're in a different place, if you're outside, so to have the time to explore. Then our third point is wait for a response. So to give time to children, if you've asked a question or made a comment, often as teachers we want to rush through things to get through the program, but just giving children time and then being patient and really listening to what they say, how they respond. So giving time for the response. And then, sorry, I'm just going to another point. The fourth one is making choices. So giving children an option between maybe two objects or two activities that they feel a sense of independence and gain some confidence in that they have input in what they can do and what they can decide. And it is a form of communication, deciding between two things. And then our fifth point, positioning. So this is specifically for children who struggle physically. So to make sure that they can reach the activity in front of them, that they are comfortable in their wheelchairs or buggies, and to change the position. So to have them lying down on the floor. Outside in the playground, they can maybe be in the sandpit on their tummies to play. So just changing the position that children are still included. And then number 6, giving assistance. So to know when to give assistance and not to do the task completely for the child. So to really gauge how much assistance the child needs. If they're struggling, maybe you can demonstrate to model the activity before just jumping in and doing it for them. So that, yeah, you gave the right level of bridge and support for assistance. And then positive feedback, so to let the child know when they're doing well, to praise them for things that they're doing well, and also things like saying, I can see you trying, so encouraging the child when you can see they're struggling, but they really want to try and do it. And then fun. It's just remember that play and learning needs to be fun, and as the teacher, you also need to have fun. And at the end of the day, children are just children. It doesn't matter, the impairment that they have, and just to tap into that, and often to let the children lead you in seeing their curiosity and how they want to explore an activity and the fun that they can have, and you can all have together in the class. And then having a goal. So having a goal for each session, so you know what you want the child to learn. That helps to structure the activity and also makes it meaningful for the child. And then to keep a record of the goals and what the goals that the child is achieving. And then repetition. I think we all know how children love to repeat things, to build a puzzle over and over, or read a favorite book over and over again. But this is the way children master skills, and their way of learning is through repetition. So really to allow a space for children to repeat things.
Thank you, Lauren. I think many of these principles are principles we should apply every day in our classrooms anyway, right? Like making choices. And I loved when you said when it comes to assistance, only provide the assistance that's really needed. You know, don't do it for the child. Then you're also taking away that opportunity. And I can tell you, even as an adult, I would love people to wait for me to respond or give me a chance to explore. So just keeping these things top of mind as we plan and prepare our themes, our activities, and think about the different levels of all the children in the classroom and how we can bring them together, possibly in groups, like you were saying, so that the right learners are with the right groups. I think, in fact, Bulumko, you're going to delve a little bit deeper for us. And I think you're taking the theme, My Body, to show us how to apply this in practice.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Helene. So the image here is an excerpt from activity 2 from the yellow manual, which is all about my body. And this activity is showing body concept. So getting to know my body parts. The first column is showing us getting ready. So what we need for the activity and what we need to look out for. The middle column shows us let's play, which is the actual activity. And then the last column on the right is showing us what we're getting from the activity. So this is helping for the children to learn body awareness and body concept, as also it shows what do we need for this activity. So usually we need a mirror and cream body lotion for this activity. The ECD teacher usually positions the children in a circle on the floor, on the mat, and she will position, or he will position themselves in the middle of the circle or in the beginning of the circle. And this is basically then used with the mirror, and the teacher, will use the mirror to help point out the body parts. She will first start on herself, and then the child will point out their body part, and then the mirror will be introduced to help identify each body part. And so looking at the 2 principles that we've chosen, which is communication, number 1, and wait for a response, number 3, we see that communication is needed throughout this activity because it's an introduction to quite a difficult concept, which is body concept, identifying and naming body parts. And so it's important for the teacher to communicate before, during, and after this activity, and at every step of the activity, so that each child knows what is expected of them out of this activity. With the point, wait for a response, it's also important for the teacher to actually wait after they've given an instruction or after they've asked a child to do something. This will help them to see the child respond and to see if they actually are able to identify the body part and they know what body part is what. And so those 2 points come out really prevalently in this activity. Also to mention, there will be a video that nicely illustrates this activity in a demonstration.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, I'm aware of the time, and I want to make sure we get to the final bit. But what a lovely video! Aki's first day at school. The biggest smile. Beautiful. So the team have put some videos down for us here to show us that in action. But Bulumka, what was so nice about what you were explaining is the theme My Body, that's not new to us. As ECD Center owners, we know these themes, we know many of these activities. I think you're really inspiring us to think about how we use what we already have, adjusting it by applying the principles and the thinking, and just get a little bit more creative.
Exactly, definitely. This video is actually showing the teachers setting up an activity about animals, and so they're doing animal identification in an inclusive setting.
And Bulumko, the learner there on the parents' lap, that's a child with a hearing disability, I think.
Yes, so there's a child in a wheelchair, the little girl, and this boy, he's sitting on his mother's lap. He has a hearing aid as well as ADHD. So he's also been included in this activity, and it's a much bigger circle. It's just that he's sitting on the lap for positioning purposes.
Yes, yes. And let's look at this video and then you'll explain to us what we're seeing here.
Yes. So this is an actual video of the activity 2, the mirror and the cream, getting to know my body. And so there are 2 teachers speaking. The one teacher in the blue, she's English and Shona speaking. And so the other teacher in the beanie is helping with translation. And so each child must identify the item of the product for hygiene, as well as what it does, also identifying their body parts using the mirror.
So cute. The
And
kids
so
are
maybe
very
you can
engaged.
put the sound up, Helene, so that they can
Sure.
hear.
Yay! What is this? Okay. Yeah. Yay! And what is this? Kambe insipho yenzani? Wow! Wow!
And the kids are doing well there. And
Very well.
even if they're not responding, they're hearing or they're engaging and they're learning at their own pace, right?
Exactly. And again, the aspect of having fun, we can see that they're engaged, they are having fun, even when they're not really responding verbally. The most important part is that they're all inclusive, all in one setting, and all of the 10 principles are being applied in that activity.
Well, I think we could continue for a whole nother hour. There's so much more we would like to discuss, but I'm seeing a lot of people asking about the training and what it's like and what it includes. So let's give the 5 minutes for Karen to explain more about what Shonaquip does and the training and the different ways that they can support also parents. And then let's see if we can do any FAQs at the end.
Sure, thanks, Helene. So our Ndinogona I Can training program it came about from a dream of Shona wanting to do more than, build wheelchairs to see inclusion in everyday life. And so this is where it started from. And we have a manual, so it's covering 4 different themes. So in 4 different colors. So all about me, all about food, all about my family and community, and learning concepts. And so we go into 100 different activities and show how they can be adapted in different ways for the different children's impairments. And also we have 4 bags that go with the training. So it's a kit with the 4 bags, and there's different toys and puzzles and activities in the bags. And then we have specialized items to help with communication and gross motor, fine motor, like the universal cuff and the built-up grip and the E-tran. And this is a 5-day training program that we do. So it's in person, so you get hands-on experience with the children with disabilities. We invite parents also to come so that teachers and parents can work together. So that is our training program in a nutshell. We will send more information in the follow-up email. So if anybody who would like to know more, we will be sending more information.
And your parent network, tell us about that.
Yes, so this is the parent network that falls under our ECO4. And so this is a WhatsApp support group for parents of children with disabilities. It's run across South Africa. And so there's a WhatsApp group for each province. And it's basically a support group for all of our parents who are raising children with disabilities. It's where they can ask each other questions, they can support each other. But we also run monthly be training all sessions, and these are on different topics. And so they're requested by the parents, and we'll have external facilitators come in and teach different topics on the parent network groups. And so if anyone knows of a parent of children with a disability who would love to join, they can contact our WhatsApp. They can WhatsApp our parent network coordinator, Nelly Seka, on the number on the slide.
Excellent. Oh, beautiful photo. Wow. I'm seeing lots of messages in the chat. We'll see if we can get back to any of you. It is such a pity that we have so little time and there's so many questions that we'd love to answer. But I think one more thing that I would like to show you is the Shonaquip team have been very generous. They have some wonderful ECD resources for us, which includes inclusivity posters in multiple languages. So everybody who has signed up for this webinar, by tomorrow, 1 o'clock, you'll get an email from a Zoom link where you will find the link to the recording of this webinar. So you can share that with colleagues, friends, and parents. And we'll also include a link to the resource folder where you can download inclusivity posters, such as this beautiful one, All Children Can Play. Some just need more support to be included. And there are many other posters as well. I also want to come to this slide so you can take a screenshot of the contact details for the Shonaquip Social Enterprise. Here are the contact details for Karen and the telephone number, as well as their website. Go and have a look at their website. You'll find it very helpful. Lots more resources, connections, and opportunities for us to connect to. I think maybe to help us wrap up, there was one very tricky question, but I wonder, Bulumko or Karen, if one of you have a comment or a suggestion to support. So Amelia said that one of the biggest problems that they face as schools and teachers is that when they identify areas of concern, and it's brought under the attention of parents, some parents refuse to have their children tested, or they're a little bit in denial, right? And we know that early detection can really help correct. I'm sure that you find this as well in many of your trainings. Do you have any advice for us if we are facing this type of problem?
Yes. So I will say that the advice that I give might be a bit philosophical, but we truly do believe that as the Ndinogona team, we are on all the same side, and it's this child's benefit. It's for the child's success. And so we always position ourselves as that the teacher is part of this team. The parent is also part of this team, because both of those people have certain knowledge about the child, and it's about those teams coming together for the greater good for the child. And so sometimes when teachers engage with parents and tell them about the issues that their children present, they are met with denial, and it could be for various reasons that the parent is facing a lot of other social factors at home. And so we always say that we need to have clear communication with our parents, because at the end of the day, it's for the greater good of the child. And when we do meet in denial parents, there are other avenues that we can go to that might help clarify or make the parents see that the condition that the child has needs attention. And so to always position yourself, especially as the ECD practitioner, as that you're not criticizing the parent, or you're not saying bad things about their parenting, but it's rather that we're looking out for the success of the child. And in order for this child to be successful, they need the help that they really deserve.
Absolutely. I mean, even as parents, I'm sure we can all think back to a time when we were different, or we didn't fit in, or we didn't know what we were doing. So coming back to what we discussed at the beginning, the words we use, the perception we have about a child not being broken, but just being different, unique, other special talents. I think as parents, we get very emotional about our children. So maybe also we need to engage parents. Repetition. Hey, Karen, principle number 10, gentle repetition. Portia, thank you so much. You have a lovely comment here. She says, what I have learned thus far as an assistant teacher, working with kids with disabilities and special needs, it's taught me patience, kindness, love, and how to be gentle with words. I think that is absolutely beautiful. Karen, any final thoughts from you as we wrap up?
Yeah, it's just, we're very grateful to have this opportunity, and just to encourage teachers and parents and principals to just open the doors and welcome children with disabilities into the classroom. And it's not always easy, but it's worth the road, and it can be a lot of fun. It doesn't have to be this scary thing to do. Just to take the step and to do it, and we'll support you as best we can.
Absolutely. Best of luck to everyone out there. May you have a beautiful short rest of the week. God bless you, and God bless all the children of South Africa. May we have a beautiful, inclusive society where we are part of that change that we want to see. Thank you to Karen and Bulumko for their lovely time, their energy and their effort. And mostly thank you to all the ECD practitioners, teachers, and center owners who give generously of their time and their passion and their energy to accommodate all the children of South Africa. We really thank you, and we hope you have a beautiful afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Helene.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.